All right, let's get this show on the road. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I'm all set.
I love it. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and thanks for waiting a couple extra minutes just to give a few more people a chance to pop on. We are ready to go. So today we're going to be talking about Bacon Unlimited, as you know. This webinar, Unleashing IT Efficiency, Consolidate and Streamline Your Operations with Bacon Unlimited. So we're really going to be focused on talking about how you can consolidate tools and how Bacon brings together many of the endpoint management functions that historically have often been solved by a lot of point tools or not very successfully by combination type tools. Well, Bacon, I think, does a very good job of combining those things together. So I'll just quickly mention what our agenda is today in more specific. We'll do intros in a moment, then we'll do the high-level overview. Then we'll really get into the demo and show it off and talk about what's happening with real-world customers and the real-world sort of solutions that they're dealing with. We'll talk about a few new features that are coming out in our upcoming 3 next versions, which will be coming out here through the summer. And then we'll wrap it up. So with that, why don't we jump into introductions, Dave? And I'll have you jump to the next slide there. I'm Joe Marcato. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO of Bacon Unlimited. So I've been around since the beginning, as they say, but I'm not nearly as good of a demo person as Dave is, and he's one of our senior engineers. So thank you, Dave Adekoya, for joining us today and for doing what you always do so well, which is explaining how this whole thing works.
Of course, happy to help.
Thank you. So why don't we do a little housekeeping just quickly before we jump in. We do have a few things that you should know. If you haven't used the GoToWebinar system before, you can ask questions over in the right-hand panel. There's just a little drop down for that. We do love questions. Feel free to ask whatever you want, and we will answer as we go through. And also, you'll see a couple polls pop up just to help steer the conversation. We'll do those quickly coming up here shortly. And then lastly, we are going to have a survey at the end, and we greatly appreciate you filling that out. It helps us do better webinars and do better and more exciting things in the product all the time. So thank you for that, and we will thank you by sending you a ridiculously soft, awesome Bacon t-shirt, which is sort of slightly pictured there in the screen. All right, so the other thing I'll mention is our Bacon Bits videos, which are up in our YouTube channel. If you're trying to learn about specific features, a lot of people use this as a training function. There's a lot of great 2 and 3 minute videos up there just showing how to do specific things. There's also a couple of playlists which are helpful for people who are getting started with Bacon up there as well. So for both our self-hosted and hosted models of using Bacon. So please check those out. And we also have another place that's a good resource for you. If you check out our website, you'll see we have a bunch of customer testimonials and overall information on the product. So, all right, that's the main housekeeping stuff. Let's talk about what Bacon is. I'm going to give a quick high level for sort of what it is and why you should use it. But Dave's going to then take it and really go into the product itself and show it to you and talk about maybe some other tool areas that you could replace and consolidate down into one very cost-effective tool. So what it is a security-first cross-platform endpoint management solution. It's been expanding, so it does have MDM functionality for Apple products as well, in addition to doing Windows and Linux. We do not have Android currently. I always like people to know that because we will in the future, but as soon as we released our Apple MDM, the first question I got 80,000 times was, what about Android? And the response that I had, some people understood and some people thought, well, they really wanted Android, which is that Android is a very unique system, how it's set up for MDM, and we have to build it separately, and we just haven't slated to do that yet, but we do want to do it. But we have noticed that in businesses, more than 80% that are supplying iOS devices, iPads, iPhones, or other types of tablets, more than 80% of those are actually the Apple kind. So That's why we started there, and also to give very broad support to macOS, which requires some MDM along with traditional endpoint management. So we kind of cover the gamut. So the other thing about Bacon is what it really does once you're controlling things. So you're controlling servers and workstations and laptops from wherever they may be in the world. That could be in your data center, in an office, could be while people are working from home or on the road or sitting at Starbucks. It doesn't matter. The point is we can securely manage them no matter where they go. And that's really, really powerful for IT administrators to know that they can securely do that. The other sort of things we can do is install patches and really control the patching landscape for your company. Install third-party software, with Google Chrome or your custom application or Office or anything that you can think of. We can do that, and we can do it in really, really easy ways that you can get ramped up on the very first day that you have Bacon. The other thing that we can do that's very unique to Bacon is we have a system called Profiles, which allows you to set and control virtually anything on any operating system that we support. So that's 8 flavors of Linux, Mac OS, Windows, and iOS. Now, iOS as sort of a phone and tablet platform has a few limitations, but overall, we still can control every setting that is possible on those devices. So some of the things you might think of there would be things like being able to control firewall rules or group policies on Windows or registry settings or config files on Windows and Linux. Anything that you would want your machines to sort of be like, you can make them like that. And then you can monitor and know that they're like that. So a common use case would be like in the security side of things, if you're trying to meet certain control sets. As far as endpoints go, you're going to have incredibly precise control over all of the controls that you want to set on your systems. So the other thing you can do is remote management. So you can remote control a machine from its screen, its command line, or its file system, anywhere it is in the world. So pairing that with the macro automation and control features we have, like rolling out, let's say, Firefox to 500 or 1,000 machines at once. And then, if a machine doesn't happen to take the Firefox installer, you can just go right in and remote to it and figure out, did it run out of disk space? Was there something wrong with it? That's kind of what the system is meant to do. It's meant to make anyone from sort of a tier 1 help desk all the way up to, a tier 3 or even a sort of an architect level IT person get a lot of functional control over systems. So that's kind of what Bacon is. I think maybe we'll talk about why Bacon, and I think really it's almost the same answer to some degree, because the reason to use it is that it's easy and that it has most of these functions that you're going to need in one tool. And there's a couple other reasons that I like to add here. One, we've been getting a lot of feedback. You'll see some of this in our testimonials, but we've been talking to people, and what they really like is the intensive excuse me, support that we offer to people. It's a little bit different. It's not just like bug fixing and things for the software. It's also about making sure you can use it in your environment in a really full and functional way and unique to you. So all of those things are included with the product. It's a very simple model, subscription model on, per device is managed essentially. And all of our features come with it, both the ones that you get on the day you start your subscription or any that come out during that time. So I think all of those are really good reasons to use Bacon. Maybe the biggest macro one that I'll say before Dave's kind of put up some of our top clients in different industries. Maybe you relate to some of these companies. But I think the idea that a very modern technology that has reimagined how endpoint management works was something that was really, really needed. So being 5 years old as opposed to being 20 plus years old has really been a big difference maker. A lot of those older tools just didn't really keep up with the times. They were bought up and sold years ago and been traded around between private equity companies, and don't seem to come out with a lot of new features or fix a lot of things. And so Bacon really needed to be born. And it has been a really, really fun and exciting journey over the last 5 years making it. And we're not done. We've got a lot of new features coming up, which we'll talk about at the end. And we'd certainly love to add you to our community. So with that said, Dave, I think is a good time to actually show them the product itself before I put them all to sleep. So why don't we have you jump in and show them how they can consolidate their tools and really get something that's useful and can make their days a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start by walking through our general demo. We're gonna focus a little bit on, like John said, consolidation and where Bacon can really help out so you don't have to use multiple tools to do stuff. So let's go ahead and start with our overview page. This is where you end up when you first log into Bacon, and there's a couple different widgets I want to cover. So we have alert. This will show you the alerts that have been triggered in your environment. These are ones we can custom configure, so I'll show you those right up next. Then I have endpoints. This is going to show you which endpoints you have online versus offline, right? Pretty simple metric. Next, we have distribution. So what operating systems are we running in this environment? Then we have patches. This will show you how many patches or patch jobs you can deploy by operating system. We have antivirus protection. This is a really nice one. This allows you to select services that you would like to contribute to this number. So rather than us having a large list of AV that we've heard of or that we actively check for, you're able to go and select any number of services on your own. So that can be very helpful there. Then lastly here we have encrypted hard drives. So this will show you which drives of yours are encrypted. So it supports BitLocker as well as File Vault. Now, before we get too far into it, while we still have your attention, we want to do a couple polls. John, can you go ahead and get those started?
Yeah, let's fire those up. I think Lane's got the buttons on those, so we'll get those popped out here.
Yeah,
all
sure.
right. Which features are you most interested in seeing? So we can have Dave kind of focus and emphasize on certain areas here if the crowd really wants to go in one direction versus another. The tool is large, so we do keep it somewhat summarized. And I would urge anybody as you're filling out this poll to think about, if there's something specific that you want to do, you can schedule a direct demo with us too. We can answer your questions in person, but just want to make sure we kind of get these all figured out. Let's see. Yep. Well, we're seeing kind of a good mix there. So profiles, interestingly, this is the first time in a while that I've seen people want to see profiles more than other features, Dave. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. It sounds like we've got a nice, sophisticated crowd here, and they want to see some of the amazing things that we can do. So, but we've got pretty close on endpoint and on patching too. A little less on monitoring. So that's cool. Lane, why don't we fire up the second poll, and then we can just keep driving with the demo. What OSs do you support? So we're kind of trying to figure out here, are a lot of you in multi-OS environments, or are most of you in Windows only? We see a big mix of both. I've seen every mixture you could possibly think of, I think. Looks like a pretty good mix, although the one thing I'm seeing is just about everybody has some Windows that they have to manage, and a little less than half on iOS, a little less than half on macOS, and a little above half on Linux. So sort of interesting numbers, I'd say, overall. These polls kind of update here in real time, so those numbers might change slightly, but they look like they're mostly in. So I'd say that's probably where it's going to land. macOS and iOS just dropped off a little. Linux went up a little bit more. So 56% of you are managing some Linux. 94% of you are managing Windows. Only 39 and 44% respectively for iOS and macOS. So definitely a heavy Windows crowd, Dave. But if you want to pop in some of those others, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so continuing on, just to finish off here one more time, encrypted hard drives, this allows us to see which of our drives are or versus not encrypted. So we can pick up on the keys for Windows BitLocker and escrow those for you as well. And we can do the same thing for macOS File Vault when you're enabling it through our macOS MDM. So next up, let's take a look at monitoring, at least a quick look. So here you can see we're able to set up rules in the system. And these rules can be for things like performance indicators, service or daemon watchers, connection watchers, stuff like that. We also have some nice ones too, like patch age and patch count. So how old is the oldest patch versus how many patches do I have available? Those can be deployed to groups or to individual workstations or servers. Once those alerts are triggered, they'll show up here. And we're able to either send these to you over email. We can send it to multiple emails. So maybe we can send to your ticketing system and the IT team, as well as if you're using Jira or Autotask, we have direct API integration there. And what that allows us to do is both open and close tickets. So once we dismiss this or this condition is no longer occurring, that would auto close it there. Then lastly here, we have a knock dashboard as well. So this lets you get a visual indication of the health of your environment. You can see here we're able to activate different filters, as well as we can change how this page displays by modifying columns and modifying the scrolling speed as we have it scroll through everything here. And the explanation for all these different colors are actually explained up here with this little question mark. So you can kind of see how we consider a warning healthy or a critical machine. So next up, let's go to the endpoints table. This is a pretty good one. So one thing I want to highlight before we get started here is a lot of these tables in Bacon can be exported. So if I go to Actions, I'm able to export this table data. And as you can see here by the columns, there's a lot of stuff we're pulling back about these endpoints. So we have things like IP address. If it has multiple IPs, they'll be comma separated, like you see here in Bacon Ubuntu 18. We also grab stuff like serial number that can be very handy for inventory. And again, remember, we can export. So even if the machine's offline, you can still have all this data available to you, basically a snapshot of the last time we saw the machine. So navigating Bacon is pretty simple. We have a quick search. This is going to search through every single column we have here all at once. So if I type in like the first 2 octets of an IP address, oops, misclick here, try again, here we go. It's going to filter my table by 192.168 out of 205 in here, just to cut a little bit more. And it'll filter through all the endpoints here. Now I also have the option of adding filters. If I choose filter here, I can then pick through each of those columns we saw before. So I can say I want to filter for OS platform, and I'll choose Windows. And maybe I want to find a device that has our remote control agent installed. So I can choose the very bottom one. Let's see, remote status is ready. And so I've cut my table again with these filters. One nice thing too is that these filters can be used to create dynamic groups in Bacon. So we can have a certain set of criteria here, and then when we use this to create a dynamic group, this will allow us to have machines join and leave that group if they meet this criteria. It's going to be very handy for kind of grouping endpoints without having to go in the system and readjust your groups every time you deploy or decom a machine. So let's take a look at what the individual endpoint data looks like. So on the endpoint details table, or excuse me, page, I have 8 different tiles I'm going to click through. First off, the system one's going to show you some more detailed system information. So like we saw before, we still have things like serial number and like OS version, but now we also have stuff like CPU model and the current available RAM versus utilized RAM here. On the right-hand side, we have options for tags and notes, and these are going to be product-wide, so the tags and notes I add will be shared for other users who are logging into the system too, or other admins, I should say. Moving along, next we have disk. If I had any encrypted disks, there would have a there would be a lock icon above either C or F here. And then again, if I had any BitLocker keys, those are escrowed here. It checks every hour for these, so we'll always have the most up-to-date recovery key for you. Next up, we have network. So this will show any kind of network interface colors you have, as well as like virtual tab adapters. So all of your VPN connections will be in here too, along with if it's active and their current IP address. That can be very handy for trying to find devices on the network. Then we have policies. So we'll get into profiles a little bit later on. But this will show you what profiles you have deployed to this machine, as well as what groups it's a member of. And if this was macOS and we had MDM enabled, we'd have the MDM profiles over here in this menu for which one of those have been enabled. Next up, we have software. So this is actually a really nice table. This is going to show you what software and version they're running on the machine, but there's also this really nice right-hand column here, this number of endpoints. It shows you how many machines have the same software and version. So I can easily say, 11 of our endpoints have this Bacon remote agent installed. And like before, we have our quick search. We can search for things in here, or we can go through here and use different filters as well. Next up, we have available patches. Unfortunately, this machine's completely patched up, so I'll take a look at that from the larger patching menu over here, which shows patches for all devices. But keep in mind that the same steps we're going to use over here can be done on the individual endpoint side. We try to keep the UIs as similar as possible, so you only have to learn one method, regardless of where in the product you try to initiate that action. Next up, we have services. So on the individual endpoint detail page, this will show you the services that you have available. And I can also filter here for is antivirus. And here you can see we're able to mark, like I said, any service as AV. Windows Search is absolutely not one, but to contribute to that count on the overview page, we've marked it here just to kind of prove our point. And so you can easily start and stop services from here, as well as marking or unmarking them as antivirus. Then lastly, we'll take a peek at this later on. This is the job log table. This shows you all jobs that were deployed that involve this machine. And you can click here to open up the larger job log table and look at the results. Now, before we get too far away from the endpoint page, I want to also show off the remote. So this remote's actually built into Bacon. It's part of your license. You can use it or choose to if you'd like, but it's not required. We have a separate installation that you can run that will install the remote on your machines. So here, if I log into my screen remote, we'll see the desktop of this endpoint. All right, so most of us have used remote tools, so I won't really blow your mind here, but we're able to send and receive clipboard. We can send just individual characters. It's going to be very useful for typing in passwords. If we had multiple displays, we'd have a drop-down selector here, so you can show one screen or it'll tile them all out for you. Then we have things like chat. We have lovely Bing advertisements. With things like chat, we have the method to lock out the remote keyboard controls, which can be very useful as well. And we also have some quality settings up here. So if you're running on low bandwidth scenarios, you can adjust this as need be to just kind of save on some bandwidth and make it a little bit snappier for you. Next up, we have a shell remote. This is my personal favorite. This allows you to log into the backend shell of the machine. And so here, this is Windows, so I can actually get over to PowerShell. And then because it's a persistent session, I'm able to do things like set variables. I can copy and paste in here as well. Pretty simple. And I can pull back results of variables and do some pseudo scripting. So this is going to be great for people who like to work in the shell, you're trying to solve a problem, as well as if you're on Linux and there's some of those like kind of GUIs built into the CLI like htop that live refresh. You can also have those up on the screen and they'll work exactly how you think they would. Then lastly, we have file system. So this allows you to push and pull files from that remote system. So I can navigate through the file system, in this case, C drive for Windows. I can go to temp, download a log, which is a left click. As you can see, I do it quite often. And we can also upload too. So you're able to upload here, and then this will open up your file explorer, and you can just push files to that machine. So next up, now we've covered the remote, let's move on to these software tables. So just a quick view, it's going to look a lot like the software table we saw before, with the exception being that it's now going to show software for all of our endpoints. And again, we're able to filter through here to change the OS that we're looking at. If we had iOS devices in the server, the software for those devices is also listed here too. Again, we want to keep everything in the same place as much as possible to make it easier to manage. When I look at services, very similar. We'll see the number of endpoints with the service here on the right-hand side. And like before, all the services along with our if it is or is not AV can be filtered through over here. All right, so that's kind of the basics. It's kind of the basics. I'd like to get into patching, John, if you're ready for that one. I can have you start going through the features that we've added here that are different than previous versions.
Absolutely. So, right, we've always had this available feature in patching. In other words, we can show you your patches and what patches you need to put on each machine. And we do that in a very thorough way. So one thing that we learned a long time ago, and one of the problems with many older patching systems, is that they didn't necessarily always obey or think in terms of what the operating system is trying to do. So the operating systems manufacturers, Microsoft, Apple, and many different groups making Linux, they really put a lot of thought into how patching works and generally create a subsystem that has a lot of flexibility. That doesn't always mean that the tools that they make available to you are just what you need or sometimes even close. But the good news is that the internal guts are really there. And so what we are very thorough about, and this is something we've always had or for a very long time, is the ability to ensure that the patching system is doing the correct job in finding out exactly what is available for each system, and then being able to control all of the metadata and knowledge we know about that to get those patches installed with all of the specificity that you need. So that's kind of where our thinking was, and that's why our patching is so easy. Most of our clients that have had it for a while, and indeed ourselves, patching is like barely a thought. It's so easy to get completed. You do some testing after the patches have been out for a few days. Then if the testing goes well, you do a mass deployment. There's very little time and effort involved once you get into this process. Now, one thing we didn't have before, and this is what Dave is kind of referring to, are our history and compliance screens, which you can see are there now on the left, and were added as of version 4.2 of Bacon. So the compliance screen is a really simple one. It shows you a compliance score. It gives you the ability to kind of cut up and find exactly the systems you want. Maybe you grab a department's worth of computers and the manager can see that, or you can export this report and they kind of understand, geez, you know, these are the machines where we're only at kind of 70%, and here's all the machines that are all good, and, you know, really get a sense for where you're at. But it's a very simplistic concept. The one that I like much more is our history report, and that's just some personal preference. But the concept here is a little bit richer, I think. And so the idea is that for every single patch on every single machine, you can know the entire history of what's happened. So you can know when every single patch became available for every machine, if it was installed or not, and if it was, when was it installed, and even an additional column that shows you the patch in the time in between that it took from availability to installation. And again, you can cut all this up. Our filtering systems are very rich in here, so you can sort and filter and have this based on exactly the patches you want and exactly the machines you want and exactly the time frames you want. And you can essentially see or even export the reports that you want that really shows that you're getting things done, that you're making progress, or that you're holding to a particular service level that someone might be holding to you. It could be management, and some of our clients, it's actually their customers who say, you know, for you guys to be working on our systems or doing this or doing that, you really need to be able to show us that you're consistently and reliably getting these patches done. So that's sort of the new stuff in patching. We're always looking for more and new functionality here, because patching is such a burdensome thing, and people do some things different ways and have different requirements. So, you know, hopefully this gives everybody what they're looking for. But if you have any ideas for it, we're always listening. So, Dave, with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so let's take a deep dive really quick into what patching looks like in Bacon. So one of the most common ways to patch is just by going to that available patch table. So here I've filtered this, for macOS. And so we can see by clicking on one of these patches, we're able to go in here and see what kind of information we've gotten, in this case from Apple. So we can see categories that have been assigned, the title of the patch, and then if it does or does not require reboot. So when I patch in Bacon, it's as easy as selecting the patches. In this case, I'll pick all of them, going to Actions and Install. From here, we'll see the patches that were selected, and I can see which ones do or do not require reboot. As I scroll down here, it's only going to show me the endpoints that need at least one of those patches. So I've got more macOS devices, but only these ones have registered or reported back that they need a patch. So once you've selected your devices, in this case, I'll just use the endpoints one, we have schedule execution time. So if I use install immediately here, it's going to push the patch job out right away. In the case of these ones I have selected, all these are offline. That patch job's just going to fail. What I most often choose instead is run when connected. This allows you to push it out to everybody who's currently available, and then if you're not, the system will queue it until you come back online. So in this case, that's the best choice, since all three of these Mac endpoints are offline. Next up, we have schedule time. So here I can pick a time and a date. to push that patch out. I could say, Saturday at midnight, just kind of go through here. I feel like I can just enter the numbers instead, save myself a little bit of time. Or I have relentless mode. Now, John, I did pick on you already, but I'm going to do it again. Would you mind give us a walkthrough of relentless mode?
I absolutely don't mind. I just got to do a demo earlier today where I was explaining what I always have to admit, which is this was not my idea. This feature, which is one of my favorites, was something that came up about 3 years ago in a client prospect call. They are now a client. But at the time, they said, I have this one problem. Your patching looks really easy to use. It looks really good, but I have this problem where I need to be able to set a time window for patches to run because we get a very specific 4-hour time window each weekend, or even sometimes only once every 4 weeks, where we're allowed to do patching and like rebooting and stuff like that. And I sat there for like 3 seconds and I was like, that is such an obvious and good idea. I should have thought of that, but I didn't. And I just said, that is a great idea and we're going to add that. And 2 months later, we had it. And it really actually comprises two features. So the first part is the scheduling, which, you're showing there, Dave. And you can set any time in the future. I'll try to figure out how to do it in history, but I don't have a time machine yet. But any amount of time, so it could be, tomorrow starting at 2 for 4 hours and 19 minutes and 6 seconds. It really doesn't matter. You can set any time window. But the other part, and is really indicated by the checkbox at the bottom there where it says, yes, reboot the endpoint if the patch requires it. So using all the metadata that comes along with the patches, the way that patches get installed, they get clumped together and then reboots happen. Right? And certain patches can't be installed until other patches have been installed and fully installed, which requires, in some cases, a reboot. So what this feature does in total is not just the time window, but it will patch and it will reboot and it will continue the job even after a reboot. It will pick back up where it left off, essentially, and do more patches and more reboots. And you have total control over this. So it's not like it's just doing this at random. It's taking whichever patches you have approved to install and the time frame together. So, if you choose this specific group of machines and this specific group of updates that are available for those machines, it will just do those and patch, reboot, patch, reboot. It is a great way to grind through a lot of patches in a controlled amount of time without having to sit there and watch it, right? And I even a few people have said, this will help me get my weekends back. And I thought about that and I'm like, that should be my job. I should be trying to help IT people get their weekends back, where a lot of this stuff can be automated. Maybe they check on it once, or maybe they just come in on Monday morning and check on it because if anything had gone wrong, the monitoring part of Bacon would have picked it up. So that's kind of the thinking with Relentless Mode. And it's been a tremendous tool for us, but I've heard a lot of clients say, I'm really glad you have that. And I can't thank our existing customer who came up with that enough. And I have many times. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell, Dave.
Great. Thank you. Fantastic. All right, so that's the main way that you're going to be able to patch. Keep in mind, too, that from our endpoints table, we're also able to go from an endpoint first focus. So if I select these endpoints, I can also get a patch up here. This allows us to also filter this table by different groups. So you don't have to go by patches. You can just go by like the production group, the development group, maybe like certain subnets. Like I have like East Coast Factory Network I typically demo here. And so you can patch by those machines as well. Also, just a nice feature, you can also patch all these operating systems at once. It's not something immediately apparent. Some people prefer to just install all available patches. Bacon will figure out who needs what patch and list them all in the same table for you. So tons of flexibility here, depending on what you need. So next up, let's go to our repository. So we have a file repository in Bacon. This is how you push out files to the machine. And a good way to think about this is a file dropper that can then execute files. So you can use this to update font files or to put documentation on every user's desktop. Very simple stuff that in a Windows environment, or especially in our work from home and remote environment, can be unnecessarily complicated just to push a file out to a bunch of machines, you need credentials and all that kind of stuff. So here we're able to use Bacon to just drop those files on the machine. When it comes to an install, that's equally as simple. So here I could install, let's say, our Git installer or even a Firefox setup. I'm able to go to Actions and Deploy. I'll select my OS platform as Windows. And then I have the option of Launcher here. This is actually a really important button for file deployments. What this means is Bacon will place the file on the machine, and then because I choose Launcher, it'll attempt to execute it. So when I do so, I can now choose from any of my Windows endpoints. Then I have an installation location. This is where Bacon's going to place that file on the machine. If these directories don't exist, it'll create them. So this is fine by default for me. Then I have run as. So here we have either running a system by default, or we have the option of entering a username and password for Windows, or just the username for macOS or Linux. Next up, I have executable flags. In the case of an MSI, maybe want to throw in like a quiet, no restart, that kind of thing, or additional parameters like that. So very simple to just quickly push out and install in an on-demand format. And lastly, for scheduling, it's going to look very similar to how we had it for patching, with the exception of we won't have relentless mode when you're installing a browser because we don't need to reboot several times. Then we click deploy. Now our other feature here, bundles, is going to be very similar. The only difference is this supports multiple files. So I can go to our file repository, select multiple files, and then I have the option of going to actions and making a bundle. This can be handy for some of the multi-file installers. One of the ones we love to show off in demo is the Office 365 multi-file installer where you use their customization tool. So if I look here, we can see we have our Office installer with the setup exe. We have our XML file. Then we have a PowerShell script. And what we're doing here is we're going to launch the PowerShell script, which will then call the setup exe and include the XML as part of the parameters. Then it gives us some simple output. So one nice thing we're able to do in Bacon is create and edit files. These plain text files here are supported by our editor. So I can just go over here to edit to show you what that script looks like. As you can see here, we have some syntax highlighting for PowerShell scripts. So we can see that it's going to tell us it's started the installation. Then it's going to test to make sure the XML is in place. If not, it'll give us little notifications not there. And then it'll run that install and tell us when it's done. Right, so that's going to be super simple. Just like before, if I was deploying this, I can go to deploy. I already selected my OS platform when you make the bundle, so I can pick from anything Windows. Again, default location is fine. Any executable flags want to add on top, this would be going to my script, but I don't need them. And then deploy. So again, super simple, just takes a couple clicks as you see to both set up a bundle and then push stuff out. So that's great for on-demand uses, but what about some automation? So this, again, profiles and states, I'm sure I'll have a webinar one day where I just sit here and talk for 3 hours, but I'll try to keep it kind of brief. For those Windows admins, profiles, or excuse me, states can kind of be thought about like GPOs, but they're a lot more flexible and they're a lot more accountable. So we're able to go through here and set up registry keys. So in this one here, I have disable USB storage. This is going to disable USB storage access. This can be great for machines that are in public view or the public can plug things in, right? So here we can set up registry keys and set values for things. Additionally, we're also able to do things like install software or set up firewalls. So I'll look at my WebEx one here really quick. Oh, I may not have uploaded it here. Let's go over to my date instead. There we go. So here, a little bit more of a complicated one, but these are things that we can help you with, and we also provide templates, so no worries there. But this will install, upgrade, or optionally downgrade WebEx to match the version I'm pushing out. So this can be very handy for that temperamental piece of software that needs a certain version of different pieces of software to interact with on the machine. We can very much enforce certain software versions and kind of fight the auto update that a lot of software takes these days. Additionally, just to show off a little bit more, we also have the option of setting up things like firewall rules. So I know we did a webinar at one point, I'm sure it's on our YouTube channel, where we went through the different ways to configure Ubuntu firewall and Windows firewall, but it really can be super simple. So here I can enforce firewall configuration, or let's see, in this case, Ubuntu. Let me go back to that state for IP tables. like so, where I can then have it configure IP tables for me. I set this up once and I can push it out to as many endpoints as I need. So again, we're going to be able to enforce and keep monitoring all the states that have been configured. How this works is once we push out this state, it's going to go through a profile, and these profiles get applied to groups. And these profiles tell it how long to refresh or how often to check the machine for those configurations we've set. And so as we go through our job log here, we can actually see all the profile deployments. In this case, failure, probably because the machine's offline. Yep, offline. But it's going to be very detailed. Everything we do is logged. You can kind of tell by the amount of logs in here that even though it rolls, we're able to see everything. So let's go ahead and sort for a job status that did go through. I can show you what that looks like. So here we're setting wallpaper. This is a very common LGPO that we're setting. So we're going to push wallpaper to the machine, right? It'll drop that file in this folder. And then it's going to set up that GPO, that LGPO, with the parameters we need. So pretty simple. Even a small operation can again be audited, where we can not only push out the configuration, we can actually double check to make sure did it go through, did all the machines get it, that kind of thing. That's something that GPO doesn't really provide you. It pushes it out, hopefully, and it worked probably. But here we can actually prove it because this is all live output from what happened whenever we applied this profile. So that's the general overview of Bacon, especially kind of taking into account different ways we can consolidate tools. John, did you want to get into some future features?
I love future features. They're so exciting. So we've got a lot coming up, Dave. You know, for some people, summertime is all about taking vacation, and I certainly hope that all of you out there get to do that. We take no vacations. That's not true. We take little vacations. But as a software company, we really take no vacations, and we have a lot of exciting things coming. So the first of which I think, Dave, you might even have up here. It's for version 4.3. And it's related mostly to being able to use the VPP capability in Apple. So for any of those of you who would want to use Apple MDM, deploying apps is something that you can do through the volume purchase program. And if you use Apple Business Manager, you know that those apps become available there. The problem is that they also need to be able to be controlled and manipulated on your MDM server, aka Bacon in this case. So when we first made our MDM, we did not have this feature yet, and so we couldn't control the apps that were being used through VPP. Now, a lot of people don't use VPP, but bigger organizations do. And so version 4.3 is largely about releasing VPP, and that will be coming out in a few weeks. So it's already working wonderfully today, but we do go through a rigorous testing process, and that's what's remaining. There are some pieces there remaining. Right after that is actually one of my most exciting announcements, and you are the first group to hear about this. We have integrated GPT into Bacon, and we will have a full chat feature. Now, it's not something we can show yet today, just because the front end isn't fully integrated yet, but I have been chatting with Chat BLT, as we call it, for the last few weeks. And it is really exciting. We'll be coming out with the preview version in 4.4. And the exciting thing there, I think, is that what you'll be able to do in the very first version is already really exciting. One, you'll be able to ask the software and chat with it about all of the features in Bacon. So in other words, anything you would normally go scour the admin guide, which is 160 some odd pages, to find out, you can actually just chat now with the software directly and say, what section would I be able to do this? Or how, would a Windows computer do remoting, or whatever you can possibly imagine. It's fully trained, custom trained on that. The second thing it can do, though, I think is even more exciting, which is, the two things that people come into Bacon and do that require a little more sophistication. One is scripting, and scripting itself doesn't have anything to do with Bacon per se, and using scripts in Bacon is easy, but making scripts for, let's say, PowerShell or Bash or maybe a CMD batch file or a Python script, not everybody has all of those skills. So one of the cool things the Chat BLT does already and will be available for use on in about a month and maybe a little more than a month, 5 weeks, for you is the ability to actually say, I need to write a Python script that will, check the geolocation of a given Windows machine, at any given time. And then you can make that Python script, not knowing any Python, it will make it for you. It'll probably tell you, because I've done this one, it'll tell you to download GeoPy and it'll make that part of your script, which is a Python library that does a geolocation, and a couple of other things. And then it'll give you the script to actually run that. And then using our profiles feature or our repository feature, you can either run that once or continuously run it. The fun game we played with it was every 15 minutes, we had to check where every laptop was. And using that free library, which doesn't have a subscription or anything, gets you about within a square mile. So I could tell where all my laptops were within a square mile doing that. And I did not write that particular script. I had a GPT write that using our Chat BLT front end. So it's a really, really cool thing you can do. But the other thing it can do is it can write our profile states, which are little YAML files. And while we do provide 5,000 templates today to our clients, there's always unique things people want to do, and they want to feel empowered to write those themselves. So Dave's showing an example of one of those states, and this is something that you could easily ask ChatBLT to do, and it will already know how to do it, because there is a fundamental language to writing these YAML files. We even make a guide for that if you want to train yourself on it. But doing it in a coordination with ChatBLT is very exciting. Now, one thing I'll say, just to be a very honest broker here, if anybody here has used ChatGPT, when you ask it to do things like this, it's not perfect every single time. Sometimes you have to take the error code you get and feed it back in, maybe even 2 or 3 times on more complicated functions to finally have it fix its own mistakes. But I'd say probably these days, especially if you're using GPT-4, about 7 out of 10 will work on the first try, and the other 3 you'll have to iterate a few times. But it's a really exciting way to overcome problems. So, Dave, did you have a comment on that?
I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, it gets it surprisingly, like a lot of the time, it gets it right. And when it doesn't, you can usually just feed it back and say, no, try again.
Yeah, it blows my mind. So the very first version of ChatBLT will do those things. And as we advance it, it will do much, much more, where you can actually just chat your way through all of the different functions of the software, not just informationally, but functionally. And we already have a roadmap to do that. We hadn't been announcing it because we wanted to get a little closer to release before we made that public, but you are the first group that we're publicly announcing that to. And I can't wait to get that out so people can check it out and demo it, and so existing customers can get some value out of it. So that's coming soon. And then the last one I'll mention before we kind of wrap here and give you a chance to fill out the survey is the one that a lot of people have been waiting on, and that's in 4.5, which will be released most likely in very early August, maybe late July. And there's actually 2 big features coming in 4.5. So 4.5 is kind of a very major version. Not that AI is a small feature, but it is still sort of a preview feature. So that's 4.4. But in 4.5, we're going to be doing something called proactive patching, and proactive third-party patching. And we'll also be adding single sign-on for things like Azure and Okta. So you'll be able to use today, you can use local accounts or you can use Active Directory accounts for the admins to log into Bacon. You'll also be able to integrate it into, say, Azure and use full single sign-on, so that if you're logged in to your single sign-on functions on your machine, you'll be able to automatically log into Bacon and control that security element and make it much more easy to utilize. So the single sign-on is going to be great. But the third-party proactive patching, I think, is going to add a very nice piece to Bacon. And essentially, the best way to think about it is like this. There's a lot of common software out there, like Chrome or Firefox or Adobe Reader or 7-Zip. And a lot of us use those tools, and those tools need to be updated just like our operating systems do. And we can do that today in Bacon. The challenge is that what Bacon doesn't do today, but will do in version 4.5, is reach out into the cloud, into the repositories of the actual manufacturers of those software, so like Google for Chrome, and it will find out what the latest version is, and it will notify you about that if you're deciding to know that. So in our repository section over on the left-hand side of Bacon, there'll be an extra little section there that'll say tracked packages. And you'll be able to do two things in there. You'll be able to track one of 200 apps or any additional apps that can be added custom in about 10 minutes. But by default, those 200, you could say, I only care about 7-Zip and Google Chrome. And if you click on those to be watched, you'll get notified if any of your machines have that software and it's out of date. But there'll be a second box that'll be called managed. And what that really means is, first off, that we'll download the packages that are necessary to be able to upgrade that software. And then there'll be an additional function where you can choose what groups of machines, could be individual machines or whole groups, maybe all Windows laptops, whatever you want, will be automatically updated with that managed package. So it's really 3 steps. Monitor it, decide that you want to manage it, and thirdly, decide what you want to manage with it. If you're doing it with Google Chrome, you can just imagine the concept would be that for all those machines you're applying it to, you will never have to update Google Chrome or wonder if Google Chrome is updated on any machine. If it just came out today, it will download it, it will upload it, it will install it, and you will know exactly who does and who does not have the latest version. And you'll be able to do that across 200 packages plus any that you decide to add. So that's a really, really exciting feature. A lot of people have been asking for it. We did take a little bit of extra time building it, and that's because we found out that there were going to be better ways to do it, and we wanted to make sure that it was flexible enough that you could get your own apps in there, and that it would also be very, very thorough, and then it would have a monitoring component along with it as well. So we've really tried to make it as rich as we can, and looking forward to starting to show that visually next month when the front end is more richly drawn out, and then release it a little bit later in the summer. So that's all the features. I think with that, Dave, unless you've got anything else, we'll leave the last 5 minutes here so people can fill out the survey. And that's really it.
All good on my end.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to close out the webinar, and thank you in advance for filling out the survey. I hope this was helpful, and we look forward to meeting and speaking with all of you. Have a great day.